Alright everyone, it's time for me to make this video. I have done a whole bunch of Pokemon shit, and I've got the tools with me at which to make this video again. So I'm going to update from the last time I made my favorite Pokemon of each type video. And this took me about 2 hours to think through because there isn't really any Pokemon that I don't like, and I really like a lot of them from several types. So it was really hard for me to narrow it down to one for every type, which has led to some of them I'm having to use like their secondary types to justify them on here. And I wanted to do primary types whereas I like the Pokemon that I love to death the most, so much that I just can't exclude them. And some of these are going to be new, some of them are going to be old, but let's just get right into it. Some of them are going to be from Sword and Shield, and some of them are going to be returning from the last time I made this video. Not that many, because my choices in what I like have changed a bit since then. But we're going to go ahead, we're going to get in. Some of my reasonings are going to be good, some of them are going to be bad, so just stick with me. So we're going to move to grass first, and it's nobody's surprise, it's Whimsicott. I've said in multiple different occasions, not really on video, that Whimsicott is my favorite Pokemon, but it used to be my favorite Pokemon. We'll get there eventually. In this list, it's actually like halfway through it, and it's just, I love the aesthetic. I didn't think too much of this Pokemon in 5th gen, but whenever 6th gen dropped and I saw this thing in 3D, I was like, oh my goodness, that is the new favorite. That is the new favorite Pokemon. It just is. I love everything about it. Its design, how cute it is, what it can do in battle, because I love being a little cheeky shit. You guys have seen that in the free-for-alls. And yeah, that's why I just love Whimsicott to death. And moving on to fire type, this is going to be our first new addition to the list. It's Cinderace. Ever since I saw Scorbunny, I was like, I knew that one was going to be the one that I picked. However, when I got there, I made the mental decision of I'm just gonna let my reactions to seeing all of them in the little cinematic where you get to pick your starter, and that's how I'm going to pick them. And he just, whenever I saw Scorbunny, I was like, I made an audible little squeak whenever I saw it, and then as it evolved, I kind of was like, okay, I can vibe with Reboot, and then I saw Cinderace, I was like, this is amazing, this is great, I love this, because I love rabbits, and I've called it Peter Rabbit, because, that's probably why this is more sentimental, because I named it Peter Rabbit, and my boyfriend's name is Peter, and I wanted to basically, I was going to name my starter Peter something, regardless, and, because I was going to bring him with me, because he doesn't have a Switch, and he doesn't play Pokemon, but I wanted him with me, in a sense, you know? If that makes sense to you. It might be a bit weird, but we're just going to move into water type now with Dewont. And Dewont he's just a goofy lad. He's just a goofy lad. Look at him. Look at him. Look how goofy he looks. Look how goofy he looks. Look at how weird he looks in 3D. Like in 2D, I didn't think too much of him, except for that he was definitely better than we got as Samurott. And other than that, I was like, whatever. But then when I saw him in 3D, I was like, this thing, he's perfect now. He's perfect. And that's my reason. It's going to be one of the weaker reasons I have him up here. Because no other water type has had that effect on me. No other water type like really pops in my mind. It's like, oh, this has got to be it. Except for him. Alright, moving on to normal type. Obstagoon, another new Pokemon. I love Zigzagoon. It's my favorite Route 1 rat, essentially. Which has not really seen all that much contention since then either. Zigzagoon's literally perfect. They could have stopped there and I wouldn't have been mad. And Obstagoon just is more of what Galarian Zigzagoon was, and Galarian Zigzagoon was more Zigzagoon, and I loved it, so I love Obstagoon to death for that. Zigzagoon now, like everybody loves Zigzagoon now, and nobody's like, oh dude, Zigzagoon, whatever. And now we're keeping the trend of new Pokemon going with more Pico in the electric type slot. I can't really think of this thing as a dark type, which is why it's not in the dark type slot. And I just love it. It's the best Pikachu clone we have, and I count Pikachu clone amongst his Pikachu clone brethren. and he's just so wonderful, and he's got this wonderful gimmick. It's not a shock to anyone who realized that I shiny hunted this thing on stream first once I got my Elgato up and running. So yeah. Now we're gonna move into Psychic, which we have Gallade. Love Gallade. There's nothing wrong with Gallade, and that's what I was looking at with Psychic types, because I don't like a lot of Psychic types. So I was like, okay, what's wrong with Gallade? There's nothing wrong with Gallade. There's nothing wrong with Gardevoir either. But I like Gallade more than Gardevoir. And there's a lot of similarly named Pokemon in there. Might do another. No, I'm not going to do a video on that. Don't even quote me on that. And that's pretty much what we have with Gallade. He's just a solid design. Nothing wrong with him. And I love him for that. And now we're going to move on to fighting, which is Riolu. Not Lucario, but Riolu. Because he gets Prankster and you can be a little shit with him. And he looks adorable. Again, some of my reasonings are going to be stupid. This is one of them. If I was including legendaries on the list, I would have Marshadow here. My washing machine's in the background. That might be what you just heard, that buzz, if you heard it at all. Comment if you heard the buzz. Marshadow would be here, but I made myself limit not to put legendaries on here, because that's going to be a different video that I might do along the line if you guys want it. Comment if you want that as well, along with if you heard the machine buzz. And next, we're going to move to rock typing, and I said that you guys would see my favorite Pokemon later in the list, and here it is. And part of me was like retarded when I was stupid. I'm not going to be ableist. Stupid whenever I was picking Pokemon for this video. I was like, what's my favorite rock type? And I literally keep forgetting that every time somebody mentions Lycanroc, I go on like a 3-minute tangent about why Lycanroc is the best Pokemon in the game. So, here he is. I can't wait for him to come back in the Isle of Armor. I'm so happy that he's already been announced. I don't have to have that suspense. And here's a pick that's just wrought with nostalgia. I put him too far to the left. Mamoswine. It's Peaches. Little story with this one. I did not know that Swinub could get an evolution in Diamond and Pearl. However, I did find, and I didn't find this out until like near the end of the game, where another trainer had one, and like I spent so long, because the only way you could get him to evolve is if he had Ancient Power, which is you have to go back and heart scale that onto your Piloswine if you want Ancient Power, which they've changed that since then, where you can just get it via level up, but it's like I think in like the 40s for most of the time. And I had to go back and I had to heart scale it on. It was like, I looked online for how you could get it back, and you're like, oh shoot, you just heart scale Ancient Power back on. And I did that, and I had my own Mamoswine, and I just sweeped the entire Elite Four with it afterwards, and it was such a great moment for me. And and ever since then, Mamoswine's been my favorite, one of my favorite Pokemon. And I slotted him into the ground type because there's an ice type I really like that I treat more as an ice type, and I treat him more as a ground type. Even though I say him, even though I'm using the female sprite. Moving on to flying type, we have Rowlet, and it's gonna be another one of those weak, another one of those weak reasonings. It's just a little birdie ball of orb, isn't it? It's so amazing, and I love it. It's Hoomstuff, who I've also brought to one of Nick's free-for-alls, and just, again, was just a little shit with it, and I had so much fun. And that's why Rowlet makes it for flying type. Just beating out Staraptor, because Staraptor is wonderful, but I didn't want to be like, oh guys, my favorite flying type is Staraptor, what a hot take. I didn't want to be that guy. So, almost 10 minutes in, we're moving on to the bug typing, which is Galvantula. Galvantula, if you will. Please don't, actually. He's so good. Like, ever since Gen 5, I've liked this Pokemon. I don't remember if it was my favorite bug on the last list. I didn't go back and watch it. because I knew that my opinions and my reasonings are going to be different, because I think Mammoth one wasn't even on there. And that's crazy, because I just remembered that I had done that in Diamond and Pearl. One of the first times I played through it. Because, you know, reasons. And I love Galvantula, and I never used Galvantula until like Gen 7 in a playthrough. And I just love him. I love that for him. I love this little guy. I just moved the layout around instead of him. I love this little guy. I love him to death. As you can tell, I'm like hot editing in OBS while I'm doing this just so I can move the sprites around. Okay, so now that I've spent over a minute on Galvantula just telling you that I love him, let's move it to Rosary. Another Diamond and Pearl story here. This is what I used my Shiny Stone on first. Everybody's first Diamond and Pearl team had Luxray, Staraptor, their starter, and a Shiny Stone Pokemon. And in some cases a Dawnstone Pokemon, you know? So, this is my Shiny Stone Pokemon, and it beat everything up. And I've loved it since I saw it on Gardenia's team in Diamond and Pearl, and Platinum, of course. It's such a good design, and the 3D era has kind of hurt it. It doesn't have the same mystique to it that it used to, but I still love it so much, and I cannot not like it. You feel me? And we're gonna move to Dark type, like I said. Both Obstagoon and Morpeko sort of got snubbed for that, but because my favorite Dark type is still Bisharp. I know Bisharp made the list for favorite Pokemon of every type last time. Which, by the way, I remember the editing on that video was shite. The worst thing I've ever made. And Bisharp, it's sort of the same reasons that I like him. The way he looks is amazing. It's just a matter of like a perfectly designed Pokemon. And I get that it's a Gen 5 Pokemon, so automatically people are like, that's a bit shit in it. But I like it, and I've just realized there's like 3 different Gen 5 Pokemon on here. Looks like Gen 5 isn't as bad as anybody thought. Then again, as the time has went on, everybody's got this headcanon of, oh man, Gen 5's always been great. Sure, buddy. Sure, buddy. Move on to Ghost. Only Gen 1 Pokemon on here. Gengar. I love him. I hate the YouTuber he's associated with. That's a whole different topic that I'm not going to get into, but he's just a goofy lad, and the 3D era really helped him maintain the goofy lad image, because he's always dancing. He's always vibing. Give him back Levitate, though, please, Game Freak. Curse Body's great, but that's only good for bulky mons that are going to take more than one hit. Alright, on to Ice. That was a short explanation. Ice type, Weavile. I made sure that I could get this Pokemon in the Gen 5 game by going out, capturing one in Platinum, and using that little crossbow game where you launch Pokeballs at your Pokemon, catch them, and they transfer into your game. Just so that I could have Weavile in my first playthrough of Black and White too, because I never played Black and White until that Nuzlocke I did on my channel like 2 years ago, I think, at this point. I know that was like after the Dex lock, I think. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. Go back and look at timestamps before you quote me. And that's how much I like this Pokemon. He's just it's another one of those where it's just a great design and great stats that just tie a Pokemon together perfectly for me. And I'm going to preface this Steel type by saying a lot of Pokemon in Gen 6 were hit and miss, and I think that's already given away what this is. It's definitely Klefki. No, it's Aegislash. And it's the Soul Edge. It's just the Soul Edge. It's pure Soul Edge from Soul Calibur 5. And Honedge, he's Soul Calibur because he's got his little sheath and he's holding it. And Soul Calibur is like my favorite set of fighting games ever. It's the whole reason that I got into other games that Bandai Namco makes. Things like Dragon Ball Fighters, even though I like Dragon Ball Z, which is sort of the other main reason I got it. But it really put Namco and games like Tekken on the map for me because I love Tekken 2. Not Tekken the second game, but Tekken as the franchise. So it's really nice to see basically Soul Edge the Pokemon from Soul Calibur 5. And those games came out around the same time, I think, if memory serves. So really good strategy there. And I just love using it so much. And he's so strong. He's so good competitively. He's always been good competitively. Although I see that Shadow nerf that Sword and Shield gave him, which is very funny. Alright, moving on to Dragon type, we've got another new Pokemon, Appletun. This boy is pure. If this was a giant apple pie monster, I wouldn't like it. And I think that's not a hot take either. This little dragon with an apple for a helmet is the best thing ever, and I've come into it being my favorite dragon type after it won me my first free-for-all in Pokemon Sword and Shield. It was definitely already up there, but Appletun to me is... I'd love having this thing as like a little pet. Because, like, if you ever, like, run out of money for food, he's got you. And he can just grow the shit back easily. So, you know, he's honestly one of those perfect utility pets. He probably doesn't eat that much either because he is a food. So, you know. And it's canonized that he's delicious. So, let's move on. Because I've actually... I spent longer recording this than I thought I would. Here is a Pokemon that used to be my favorite. Used to being the operative word, because it's fallen underneath him, which is why it didn't make steel typing, this, and this, because Cinderace is like top 5 easily for me now. But my fairy type that I enjoy the most is Mawile. And this is one of the Pokemon that caused me to shift everything around, because I had Just turn the veil completely off, why don't you? I had Whimsicott here. As you can see, it's layered underneath it. This is even before I put them in order like this. And I remember, dude, Mawile, what the fuck are you doing? This used to be your channel mascot, dude. What the fuck? And it's sort of fallen from grace a little bit with me, but it's still like top 6 for sure. And it's top 1 fairy types for its fairy typing, because I view Whimsicott mostly as a grass type. It's a fairy type just for weaknesses essentially for me. And Mawile is just, ever since I saw it in was it Granite Cave, and I went and I spent forever in Granite Cave just looking for this guy or gal, looking for this Mawile until I found one. My other Pokemon were overleveled as shit for Brawly, but I caught myself a Mawile, and it was my favorite Pokemon. I made sure I bred it down and transferred over to the newest game every time I got a new game. And it was replaced by Whimsicott in the 3D era. Not for not trying, because Mawile got the Mega Evolution, which made it even better. And that's sort of where I'm at. This is my favorite Pokemon of every type. If I had to make a top 10, all of these would obviously probably be there, with an exception of 8 of them, of course. Probably not Gallade, probably not Weavile, probably not Gengar. But, you know, that's a whole nother video that I'm not going to bother you guys with. If you guys want to see some stuff like my worst Pokemon of every type, my best Pokemon of every type, no, this is my best Pokemon of every type, or my top 10 Pokemon, leave a like and a comment, and I'll see you guys next time. This has been 20 minutes of your life that I have just wasted, and I'd like to apologize for that.
Xeltoro.
Bye.